you. I'm incredibly grateful for all the work you all have been putting into everything, and I'm a little bit nervous, so I'm going to read this out. Grant, you expressed that the bitter end of COVID was now, in hindsight, an unbelievable debacle, and that Melbourne was inexplicable. But with the laws that are being passed, these sorts of events would not be able to even happen with that kind of thought process that's being pushed. And we, as a community, like, how can we, as a community, coalesce around this? I mean, people are incredibly concerned, and as a public health leader, what are the plebs to do? Like,
simple question.
30 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, I don't want to be a pessimist here, but I run my life at the moment in sort of cycles between, absolute despair and reflective optimism. And I don't know what state I'm in at the moment, but it'll probably switch soon. I think one of the speakers yesterday who was, really into the sort of big pharma politics then makes some very good points. In hindsight's a wonderful thing, but also I always wondered how Nazi Germany could happen, and those were things. I wondered how the whole population could change its mind and be, very rule-abiding. And as a rule breaker my whole life, I found that quite hard to understand. But I can see that that's a thing now. I think in this audience is Dr. Simon Thornley, who in New Zealand was a real leader in evidence-based medicine around the COVID stuff and the nutrition stuff. And he's worse off for that, frankly. But well done, Simon. You're a hero to me. I just hope that most of us have the guts going forward to do stuff. I think our community's been pretty good. We'll keep doing what we're doing. This community's grown really strongly over the last decade to be what it is now. And there's a lot of clinicians here as well, which is encouraging. So, I think we'll just carry on with, let's stay in the quietly optimistic stage.
A question.
Yeah, I've got a question for Anja. I'd like to ask you how you assess adrenal function in your patients, what we should be doing.
I think it just goes.
It's working.
Just talk.
Just talk, okay. So there's a couple of things. Most of it I get out of the history. If a patient is telling me, so I usually take a history before birth, actually. So that's where it all starts. And if the mother has been under stress in some way or form while that person was in utero, that's a thing. If they had lots of childhood adversity, like especially stress, have been raped or something like that, or really if they describe their childhood as in survival mode or horrible, I usually don't go into the details because that gives me enough information, and I let the patient volunteer what they want to tell me. Because I'm not a psychologist and don't want to dig in there. Just for me, it gives me that sort of cue. And if it goes on, like, okay, then they had, horrible time at school, lots of bullying. Then it goes on, I've been in a horrible relationship which broke up. So that's my classic sort of patient. Or it was like, I've never been the same since I lost that person. I've never been the same since, that divorce. So I get a lot of cues out of the history, and when your adrenals are constantly firing, they get worn out at some point. If you've got this sort of constant, lifelong adrenal sort of overdrive. Then there are a couple of physical examinations you can do. For example, if you shine a light into someone's eyes, the pupils should naturally constrict and stay constricted. So if you keep shining that light into their eyes, or just a normal sort of otoscope or so will do, and they go and they relax just a touch, and they go straight into that sympathetic nervous system mode, again, I know their adrenals are not, firing appropriately, or they're completely washed out. And then there's another test you can do. I usually do it with just a normal sort of reflex hammer or something like that. I just, I assess their abdomen as I do, and then I do other tests, and then I scratch their tummies a little bit. And if you have a normal adrenal response, normally you respond with inflammation, and that line should get red. So if someone is completely flushed out, they get something which is called surgeon's lines, and these lines which are scratched on their tummy stay white. So there's no inflammatory response anymore. So they're just like, You can all scratch your tummies now.
Scratch
So I get a lot of cues from the history, a little bit out of the examination. It doesn't really work that well if I do telehealth. But then, and you try the simple things first. But you can also do a cortisol saliva test where you basically measure in your saliva, you measure your cortisol curve over a day, because it's not the same. You know, it's supposed to be highest in the morning because your body wakes up and your adrenals basically tell the liver to make sugar. So because you're meant to go out there and hunt your breakfast, so it's not served outside your cave. It didn't happen. So your cortisol levels are naturally higher in the morning to get your breakfast. So your liver serves your breakfast. But if someone, then it should get sort of naturally lower over the day, and it should be lowest at nighttime. And if someone tells me in the history, like, yeah, okay, I have difficulties falling asleep, or I'm waking up in the middle of the night and like 2 o'clock in the morning and I can't fall back to sleep. So that are cues to me, is like your adrenals are probably not in the state where they should be. So most of it I get out of the history. You can do it. You know, I can prove it with this cortisol saliva testing, and then we just find the pause button and bring that person back to normal health with a lot of meditation, not medication. Sorry. Really sort of calm down, and sometimes it's just a matter of focusing on. So if they're cortisol is sort of like, you know, a bit like a curve like that. We focus on that times of the day where it's highest, and then we just find that 5 minutes breathing meditation. And it's really, it's often like a really, really strong focus on self-care, basically, and acknowledging those sort of situations. And I mean, I'm a big fan of leaving things in the past where they are. Don't dig around too much. If you're happy, as long as it doesn't affect your current, your presence, it's fine. So some people, I see psychologists for the sort of traumatic events in the past, but some people came to terms with it and they're actually quite happy, and they're just happy to leave things where they are. And that's my sort of, you know, approach as well. But if they need more sort of help to work up with the problems which they had in the past, then of course I involve a psychologist and help them working through this. But that's the adrenal part, yes. It's very complex, and it's actually a talk in itself, to be honest. So I try to have the adrenals on board, because that I found, as a low carb practitioner, I found the adrenals are the biggest hurdle sometimes.
Thanks.
Okay, we've got a question over here.
Hi, I'm a GP from Perth, Anita. I have a question about meal replacements and protein shakes for Caryn. What are your thoughts about that? Because I have, you know, patients are so happy on those things. So,
Meal replacement.
My thoughts on meal replacements? None. Piss for, Nova for. I don't love them. Look, I think anything temporary is doable, and I think you need to look at the individual patient as well. And if there is difficulty with putting foods together, food literacy, whatever's going on, and there's a meal replacement for a temporary measure to get the carbs down or the calories down or both or whatever, then you could say, okay, you can do that for a little bit of time. I would prefer starting with food and ending with food. So a lot of those meal replacements are literally just processed food, so I don't love them, sorry.
Category 4?
I agree with you. Thank you.
Would they be category 4? Category 4.
Yeah.
Have we got a question over here?
Yeah, I'd just like to relate an incident, please, about the GABA. You can buy GABA now in capsules at health food shops. So I've been following GABA and glutamine and oxygrow and all the problems that it causes for quite a long time. So I've seen GABA on the shelf, so I thought, yeah, we'll give this a go. So I took one capsule of GABA that afternoon. I felt quite elated, quite calm, and within 2 hours it dropped me like a bomb, and I know that it had nothing to do with anything going on at that, because I've been, since low carb and everything, I've been quite calm, and depression's quite easy to handle. There's been no depression, but that one capsule of GABA, after a couple of hours, it dropped me like a bomb. So I just thought I'd leave that with you. Yeah.
I mean, GABA is an inhibitory thing. It'll calm you, feel good, but I'm not sure it resolves glutamate GABA homeostasis, which I think's at least in my view of the world is a key thing. So, yeah, agree.
Okay. Yeah, thanks. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Alok Gupta. I'm a renal physician. I have a question for Anja. I do practice fasting myself for 20 to 24 hours most of the days. I try to breach that 24-hour mark, but what I found was my sleep disappears. I just can't sleep. So that was my question. Do you experience this in yourself or with patients, and how do you come over it?
I had that problem with some of the patients, and I believe then there's probably too much stress going on, because, as I said, fasting raises the stress hormones more in the metabolic sense than in the actual stress sense. But if someone's overworked and you can't find that sort of calm spot anymore, and your adrenals are basically keeping you awake, plus that sort of extra stress level on top of it, I feel like that's the reason. But it's my gut feeling. I haven't found any research on this or anything like that. And I have had that reported back from my patients. And when I look back, before I actually looked at adrenal sort of health, I think that's where the link was. I'm not sure how much adaptogens can help with that. So I utilize rhodiola and ashwagandha. So adaptogens is basically plant-based material which mellow out the adrenal response to your environment. And I found when people have that, they respond much better. But again, I only started sort of suggesting fasting or prolonged fasting to people where I really feel like their adrenals are really solid and they have a very sort of very good cortisol or low cortisol levels at nighttime. So, and I'm not sure how much is that sort of tied into our sort of habits. Like, say, someone stays up at nighttime all the time because they've been studying or they've been working or whatever. And then plus this extra adrenaline, noradrenaline that floats around in your body, maybe just enough to not, to keep your sleep, or to decrease the quality of your sleep. So, not sure, but I've heard it, and my suspicion is it's the adrenals.
The second part is, how do you measure your salivary cortisol? How do you execute or order that test?
I asked NutriPath to send my patient a box, and then they spit into a little vial, then they send it back, and then I get the results, and they spit out numbers, and that's how they do it. So how they exactly do it, I have no idea. I just get the results, yeah.
How do you decide what time to do it and how many samples you do?
So you can have either 4 samples over the day. So the patient gets a sample in the morning, midday, afternoon, and evening. But it's actually more accurate if you do the cortisol awakening response. So where you give a sample, you wake up, you spit in that little tube, then at 30 minutes and then at 60 minutes, because that's the most crucial sort of like...
Yeah, it should go up because that's what wakes you up, and then it should go back down. Yeah, right.
Exactly. So it should go up and then it should go down. And then you give it... again, you give a sample at, I think it's 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, and then 10 o'clock at night time.
And the cost?
I think NutriPath, I think it's $150. So, including postage and all of that, I think that's what it is. So, but again, most of the time I get the information out of the history. So history is pretty much everything, and then I have my suspicion. I don't know if these people are skyrocketing high and they're just pumping out cortisol 24 hours a day, or if they're so leached out that there's nothing. So I've seen both ends. Yeah.
I have a question over here.
Yeah, hi. Can you hear me? Yeah, good. My name's Peter. I'm just interested in good health and why I'm on the planet, and that's why I'm here, wanting to know the best way to live on the planet. I fast from time to time and have for many, many decades, really, and I haven't heard anyone mention enemas at all in terms of fasting, and I'd like to know what people think about that, any of the three of you who do fasting. Enemas. And also I'm interested in the fact that if I do fast, my weight loss is, of course, initially there will be a quick weight loss of maybe 4 kilos, but then over a few days, but then it tends to level off, but then it gets to a point where the weight loss becomes very little after maybe 5 or 6 days. And I'm just wondering if you have any comments on that. First, enemas, and secondly, the reason for weight loss reducing considerably after about 5 or 6 days.
What do you mean with enemas?
Okay. Well,
Like,
Clearing out your bowel with putting
but-
something in.
but like, I don't get the connection.
but putting water
Fast-
into your bowel in order to flush out.
Yeah. I get that part. So what has this to do with fasting? I have no idea.
Well, when I fast, I usually do enemas in order to flush my
okay.
bowel. Yeah.
Well, whatever works for you, I guess.
I'm just wondering about the comments about why not, because it used to be sort of said to be something that was a very good thing to do, because it would stop the reabsorption of toxins through the bowel. Am I incorrect in thinking that?
Yeah, but you mobilize lots of toxins anyway, so that's one of the reasons why I would like to have the detoxification pathway. It's really nice, up and running, because you mobilize a lot of them. But if you have a healthy gut, let's say you had a healthy diet before, and you don't have leaky gut, and you have better glucuronidase in your gut, which basically unpacks all the toxins again, then I think it should be okay. You just either poop it out, pee it out, or sweat it out during that time.
It's interesting that Bucheringer Clinic, which is a clinic on the Rhine in Germany, and there's 30-day inpatient juice fast, so they get about 300 calories a day. I always wondered, but they do enemas every day. I don't know why, but they do that, and they pretty much resolve rheumatoid arthritis is what they specialise in. You know about those? That clinic? They've got some quite good research.
No, it depends on what's in the juice. So if there's all these sort of sugary things in there again, so yeah, I guess. What was the other question?
The other
Weight
was
loss.
on weight loss.
Oh, weight loss, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you lose a lot of water. So my suspicion is that because as your insulin levels are coming down, it basically frees up your kidney, not telling the kidney to keep all the salts all the time. Where salt goes, water follows. And that's the same with ketogenic diet. So you lose a lot of water initially. So the most dramatic weight loss is actually water. So that's why it's really, really important to tell those people drink, and have it with salt. Fasting in itself is not like the ultimate solution to weight loss. I mean, yes, Angus Barbieri has done it for 378 days or something like that. But if you think about it, so what you mobilize is fat. And fat is very calorically dense, so you basically only need, half a kilo or so of fat to provide that fuel. So that's why every one of us, we have plenty of fuel around us. So you don't lose a massive amount of fat as such. So it's more like because it's very efficient fuel. So the initial weight loss, I think it's more like water loss as opposed to actually fat or adipose tissues, and
That's good, right? Though, because this is water that's lost out of the plasma that for many people is high blood pressure, and that's why
Absolutely.
hypertension resolves itself and goes, oh, you only lost water, but it's like bloody good
that's
water
your high blood pressure.
Bloody
Exactly.
good water to lose. You lost your high blood pressure.
Absolutely.
It's in the toilet.
Sorry, can I just add in there that I think, while your weight loss might slow, you'll probably find if you extended that fast over a longer period of time, you would still lose weight, absolutely, but it would just be at a lower rate compared to the beginning.
Thank you.
Hi. I just wanted to make a comment. I loved Caryn's talk, and I'm really excited about the HIS classifications. I've actually written a whole foods cookbook, and one of the things I have is a prize pack that includes some ultra-processed foods. For me personally, I'm not a sweet tooth, so I've written a dessert cookbook and I've got this prize pack with these ultra-processed sweet foods. I'm not a sweet tooth, but I've got children, and once a month or so, if I've been fasting all day and paperwork goes into like 6:30, 7 o'clock, and I can't get a meal, I will use a ultra-processed protein bar, but I try to choose the best that I can. So that one you had up was horrendous, I agree. But one of the interesting things and what I've got in my prize pack is plastic-free chewing gum and plastic-free tea bags. And so what everyone is going to do now, well, not everyone, but half of you are going to line up and have a major endocrine disruptor, putting hot water into a plastic-lined cup, and some of you will dip a plastic tea bag into that plastic-lined cup, and it's worse to me than having a better quality ultra-processed protein bar.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, look, I'd have to agree, and I think I think there are bad things everywhere. We didn't even talk about pesticides, and for good reason there.
Yeah. And
but
you mentioned the plastic, so it's
Yeah.
so good that you had.
No,
that.
I absolutely agree with you. But I will say that it's not about doing everything 100%. I don't think the world can really work like that. But it's really about looking at the load.
Yeah.
Which you have, and I think if you can decrease the load. I have a confession to make. I did fly over here with a Musashi protein bar in my bag, which I still have. I did not eat it because I managed to get some eggs on the airplane. So, I've got 2 of those in my house, and I probably have maybe 2 of them per year. So it is the load that's important. And just before you jump in there, if you love the hiss, if everyone loves the hiss, we would love to have more students or collaborators that would like to come and work with us to progress it. Just thought I'd put that in.
I'm just thinking that's probably not the best way to go to morning tea. So we've got one question maybe left from James.
Possibly a question to Grant, but anyone's welcome to answer it. I'm often asked the role of honey. Is honey better for you than sugar? Humans evolved with honey. Humans did not evolve with refined sugars. Refined sugars impair glutamine synthetase, which is important in energy production in the brain, but honey does not. So do you believe that honey is ultimately better for you? Is it something that we can live with as a substitute for sugar? Any thoughts on that, please?
Yeah, that's a really good question, actually, James. It's something that I think about a lot. I mean, I suppose it depends on your metabolic state in the context of the rest of your diet is what I'd say. When I go and do this, well, I used to in the past have this gig where I went to the remote Pacific Islands for the World Health Organization. It was a choice. But like if you added some honey in their whole food subsistence diet, it would do nothing but taste a bit better and be fun. But I suppose when you add it when you're already metabolically dysregulated and already eating junk food, or it's an ingredient in your ultra-processed food, I'm adding honey to my keto brownies. I don't suppose that ends well. So that would be my view. I think you guys will have a better view than me since you actually make more food than me.
Sugar and honey. I mean, when I'm talking to my low-carb clients, I put them in the same category as being just as bad as each other. I think honey is in Nova category 1. So because it doesn't differentiate for nutrients and looks at whole food and processing, it does come into that. Actually, I think it might be in 2.
I think it's in 1.
Oh, it's in 1. Okay, so I get confused. It's quite complex, those different categories. But I think unless you're using honey for wound healing, which is really good, particularly Manuka honey, or you are using it as an every now and again, I'd put it in the same category as sugar.
Thank you.
Are we finished? We need to finish. Sorry, I can see there's still more questions, but thank you very much to our wonderful presenters.